Throughout the 14th and 15th centuries, the North Polar Arctic was imagined not as an uninhabitable sheet of ice as modern-day scientists and cartographers hold, but as a series of circular islands. The number of islands vary among these maps, although striking similarities can be seen, even on maps that were made thousands of miles away from one another. Did the mapmakers of the time simply copy and make additions to the popular maps which were false? Or perhaps, as I'm proposing, that this series of Arctic lands is not made up, but exists on our Earth. This region was subsequently deleted from future maps, and ever since, the common narrative is that the North Pole is a lifeless, uninhabitable stretch of ice. This is a short presentation on these maps, what they tell us, and how they relate. This map from 1531, made by Oronce Fine, shows 4 large islands at the North Pole, with various landforms scattered around. Just to demonstrate where we are, many have never looked at older maps. This is Europe, Africa, Canada, and Russia. This is Greenland, quite close to the North Pole's southern continent. At the center we see a massive rock formation or mountain. We can draw similarities to the center of the 4-continent system of Asian cosmology, where a sacred mountain known as Mount Meru or Mount Shumasin lay. This map from 1534, made by the same mapmaker, gives us a similar but slightly different configuration. The North Polar lands are seen as 5 or 6 large islands, and the center being what appears to be a central island, again with a large rock formation. This is Greenland, Scandinavia, Iceland, and Canada. This map is from 1594 and made by Cornelius de Jose. At first glance, we notice how magnified the North Polar region is compared to the previous maps. Instead of Oronce Fine's version with large bodies of water separating the island, we have the 4-continent system divided by thin canals, which meet at the center, where there is again seemingly a massive rock. For reference, we have Greenland, Scandinavia, Iceland, and Canada. This map, also from 1594, by Petrus Plancius, shows these same 4 continents, but separated via hemisphere. The inland sea where the 4 rivers meet is very pronounced, and again, we can marvel at how large of a system this is, and also how close it is to what we would call these outer lands. This map from 1595 by Gerhard Mercator gives us a close-up of this system. In small letters reads Rupes nigra et altissima, the black and very high rock, at the center. There is a mountain range surrounding each island continent, which in one of Mercator's letters he describes as being 14 miles wide. This is a version from 1608. It's interesting that in previous versions of this map, the southern continent isn't sort of blurred out, but is extended. The smaller islands below are completely different. It's hard to tell, but Greenland is practically touching this island with a land bridge, or it could be a thin canal, no more than 5 to 10 miles wide. This undated map of the Arctic Circle, or Circulus Arcticus, is very similar to Mercator's maps around the same time, except the center land contains no magnetic rock or rivers dividing it. It's simply one continent. The word Hyperborea, which labels this continent, refers to the mythological far northern Greek paradise of Hyperborea, the land beyond the north wind. Greenland is referred to in this map as Iloxoa. To the right is Scythia, which is interesting because in the 4th century BC, Aristotle wrote of Hyperborea as being past the Riphean Mountains, on the borders of Scythia, although no topography is shown on this map. This is an undated Japanese map with no name attached. It looks like it's probably from the mid-1500s. The Arctic region on both hemispheres show it looks like the edges of the 4 landmasses. This map, too, is undated with no recorded name. It's a Chinese map. We clearly see the northern half of the same structure shown in Mercator maps, the indrawing seas, dividing rivers, large rock at the center. Here's another undated Chinese map. This one is the sloppiest, least concise, and most different of all of these maps. There are 5 or 6 main islands with various scattered smaller ones. And just for reference, this is Canada, Russia, and this landmass appears to be Greenland. This map from 1567 by Abraham Ortelius includes at the North Pole 2 of the 4 island continent system, and this is like the original Mercator maps, showing Greenland with either a connecting land bridge or a thin canal between the borders.
I was about 6 years old when I went on my first official trip. I was going with my father and my grandpa Sinclair up to the North Pole. It was a very glamorous destination. But the best thing about it was that I was going to be spending lots of time with my dad. Because in Ottawa, he just worked so hard. One day, we were in Alert, Canada's northernmost point. A scientific, military installation that seemed to consist entirely of low, shed-like buildings and warehouses. Let's be honest, I was 6. There were no brothers around to play with. And I was getting a little bored because Dad still, somehow, had a lot of work to do. I remember a frozen, windswept Arctic afternoon when I was bundled up into a Jeep and hustled out on a special, top-secret mission. I figured I was finally going to be let into the reason for the existence of this high-security Arctic base. It was exactly right. We drove slowly through and past the buildings, all of them very gray, windy. We rounded a corner, came upon a red one. We stopped. I got out of the Jeep and started to crunch across towards the front door. I was told no. To the window. So I clambered over the snowbank, boosted up to the window, rubbed my sleeve against the frosty glass to see inside, and as my eyes adjusted to the gloom, I saw a figure hunched over one of many work tables that seemed very cluttered. He was wearing a red suit with that furry white trim. And that's when I understood just how powerful and wonderful my father was.